The stars were quiet that day, but fear moved faster than light. On the edge of the Shakril Empire, a patrol of alien soldiers moved across a human colony. Their armor was black like metal night, and their eyes glowed with cold red lights. They were trained to rule through fear. Every world they touched fell in silence, and those who resisted disappeared without a trace. The humans they thought were weak, small, fragile, easy to scare. Among the ruins of a small settlement, a single human child ran. He was no more than 8 cycles old, with brown hair tangled in the wind and eyes wide with terror. He had watched his family hide and vanish. The soldiers did not slow down. To them he was nothing but a problem. A reminder that humans still lived where they should not. The leader of the patrol, a tall alien named Vaklar, bent his head and spoke in a low, vibrating tone. "Stop him," he ordered. "Show them what happens when they resist." His soldiers advanced, their long legs clicking against the broken ground. The child froze. He did not fight. He did not scream. He only looked at them with the quiet bravery that humans sometimes carried without knowing it. Vaklar's soldiers laughed at the sight. They could not understand why the child did not run faster or cry louder. "You are weak," one of the soldiers hissed. "All humans are weak." But the child's eyes did not leave theirs. There was a strange calm in his stare, something the soldiers could not recognize. Vaklar frowned. "Enough," he said. "Let them learn fear. That is the only law." A sudden command moved through the patrol. A weapon glimmered in Vaklar's hand, sharp and cold. The child blinked once and then the world seemed to pause. For a moment nothing happened. Then the soldiers moved as one. What followed would be whispered in fear across the human worlds for years, though no one would describe it in detail. The act was quick, a mistake born of arrogance, and it left the colony silent. The patrol left the place, believing they had reminded humans of their place. But what the aliens did not know was that humans were already watching. On distant planets, ships that had been lying dormant woke. Communications buzzed quietly, almost like whispers. Humans across the stars shared the same sorrow, the same quiet anger. The death of one child, small and innocent, became a spark, a signal that something was changing. Vaklar and his soldiers returned to their capital, proud of their action. They told stories of the weak human who would learn fear, and the Empire laughed with them. They did not see the shadows moving beyond their worlds, nor did they feel the weight of eyes watching from far away. In the child's memory, humans saw not weakness, but courage. The child's calm stare became a symbol. They began to prepare quietly. Scientists worked in labs, soldiers trained in secret, and leaders spoke in hushed tones about justice, not revenge. The loss of one small life became a reason to rise together, to show that humans were not fragile. They were patient, clever, and persistent. Meanwhile, the aliens continued their rule. They punished worlds, demanded obedience, and expected silence. They could not imagine that patience, strategy, and unity would move faster than fear. For generations, they had believed that domination was simple. One mistake would show them otherwise. The stars waited. Silent and vast, they held no preference for who lived or who fell. Yet somewhere in the darkness, a quiet signal spread from world to world. Humans were remembering. They were learning. They were preparing. And in that quiet preparation, the first whispers of a reckoning began. Vaklar stood on the balcony of his palace, overlooking the glittering lights of conquered worlds. He felt satisfaction, but there was a shadow in the corner of his mind he could not name. He told himself it was fatigue or the stress of leadership. The patrol had done its duty. The Empire was strong. Fear would last forever. But somewhere, across the endless reaches of space, the memory of one human child was growing into something else. A promise, carried quietly from planet to planet, that the weak could be stronger than the mighty. That courage could outlast terror. That patience could outweigh cruelty. And in the empire of fear, not one alien knew it yet, the first seeds of hell had begun to sprout. After the patrol left the colony, the stars seemed quieter than ever. The Shakril Empire believed their work was done. The humans would be afraid, they thought, and obedience would follow. They did not know that silence can be louder than any scream. On distant human worlds, news of the child's death traveled faster than any message the aliens could intercept. Families huddled together, leaders spoke in calm voices, and soldiers prepared without drawing attention. No one shouted. No one panicked. The humans waited. They waited, but they were not idle. In the laboratories of the human homeworld, scientists worked with energy and machines old and new. They repaired ships that had been sitting in hangars for decades. They tested engines, weapons, and defenses, not to attack first but to be ready if the time came. Every calculation was precise. Every step planned. They did not act out of anger alone. They acted out of care for all their worlds and for the memory of the child. On training grounds, young humans ran drills that tested both body and mind. They practiced teamwork, patience, and tactics. They learned to move like shadows, to strike with accuracy, and to protect others without causing unnecessary harm. Teachers reminded them that strength without thought was dangerous. The loss of one life had reminded humans that even small mistakes can change everything. Leaders gathered in council halls. They spoke quietly but firmly. "The Empire believes we are afraid," one said. "They think one child's life is nothing. Let them see how wrong they are." Another nodded. "We do not seek vengeance alone. We seek justice. We will protect all who cannot protect themselves. And we will do it as one." Across the stars, alien spies began to notice strange movements. Ships once considered inactive were now moving quietly from system to system. Communications were encrypted, fast, and clever. The aliens tried to dismiss it, saying humans were weak, unpredictable, and emotional. But a small sense of unease began to grow among the Empire's officers. On one of the human worlds, a council member stared at a star map. "They believe fear rules us. Let us show them another kind of power," she said. "The power of patience, preparation, and unity." She did not shout. Her voice was calm. It carried certainty. That certainty spread through the room like a light in the dark. Meanwhile, the ordinary humans carried on with life. Children played in fields, families tended gardens, and workers built cities. Yet beneath the calm, a quiet storm was forming. Every human who looked at the sky remembered the lost child. They remembered what had been taken. But they also remembered hope, courage, and the ability to rise together. The Shakril Empire continued its rule. They punished distant planets, demanded taxes, and maintained control through fear. Soldiers patrolled streets, and leaders boasted of their strength. But whispers of unease traveled through the Empire. "Humans are planning something," some said. "We do not understand them. They are patient, too patient." On a hidden human outpost, a young soldier cleaned his weapon. He thought of the child whose life had been lost. He did not feel hatred. He felt purpose. "We will be ready," he said softly. "We will protect everyone." Around him, others nodded. They trained, they planned, and they waited. Every movement was careful. Every step was measured. They did not act rashly because humans knew that strength without wisdom could fail. As months passed, the silence of the humans became a strange kind of noise to the aliens. Nothing exploded. No fleets attacked. No cities burned. Yet in every corner of the Empire, questions began to form. Why were humans quiet? Why were they preparing without showing anger? What could they be planning? And all the while, the humans continued their work. Ships were upgraded, weapons tested, and soldiers trained. Messages of cooperation and strategy moved quickly through secure channels. They learned from every challenge. They shared knowledge between worlds. One child's death had reminded them of vulnerability, but it had also reminded them of what they could become when they stood together. By the time the aliens realized humans were not afraid, it was almost too late. Across the stars, human worlds were ready. They did not rush. They did not shout. They waited, silent and steady. The galaxy began to feel the weight of something new, something stronger than fear. A quiet storm was gathering, and the first whispers of justice spread like fire. The Shakril Empire still ruled with pride, believing fear would hold the galaxy. But the humans had learned patience. They had learned unity. And in that silence, they had become something the aliens could not understand, something the stars themselves seemed to watch with quiet awe. The storm had not yet broken. But it was coming. And when it did, the Empire of Fear would face a reckoning far greater than they had ever imagined. The first human ships appeared quietly at the edge of the Shakril Empire. They did not scream across the void. They did not fire first. The aliens watching from their observation posts laughed at the small fleet. "Weak humans," they said. Still trembling from fear. "They will beg for mercy." But the humans did not beg. They sent one message, simple and clear: "You ruled through fear. Now you will face unity." There was no anger in the words, no threat, only a warning. The aliens did not understand. They could not imagine that words could carry power without weapons. The human fleets moved steadily, carefully, through space. They did not attack cities or burn colonies. Instead, they struck with precision. Military bases were disabled, not destroyed. Communications were cut, but lives were spared. Prisons holding captured creatures were opened, and many species ran free for the first time in years. The humans acted with thought, not hatred, and the galaxy began to notice. On the bridge of the Shakril capital's main command ship, officers shouted orders. Attack! Stop them! They fired missiles and energy beams, but the humans dodged with clever maneuvers, often without firing a shot in return. Every strike the Empire made was met with calm, careful resistance. It was as if the humans knew the Empire's every move before it happened. Among the humans, young soldiers worked alongside experienced captains. They communicated silently with gestures, lights, and signals, moving like a single mind across the fleet. Scientists helped disable dangerous systems without harming anyone. Engineers repaired old ships, turning them into tools for rescue and defense. Every human worked not for revenge but for justice. Every action protected life instead of taking it. Vaklar and the other alien leaders grew anxious. They had never faced anything like this. Humans did not panic. They did not rage. They acted with patience, skill, and intelligence. Every human ship that approached seemed to multiply, every fleet that moved seemed faster than it should be. It was not fear that humans carried, it was focus. On one of the alien worlds, a governor watched as human ships glided past orbital defenses without harm. How? He whispered. They are supposed to be weak. They should be afraid. His soldiers could not answer. Some of them began to hesitate, wondering if their leaders had been wrong all along. Meanwhile, humans on the front lines freed imprisoned aliens, some of them species the Shakril had considered dangerous. Instead of attacking these creatures, the humans gave them water, food, and safety. The freed creatures did not understand immediately, but they remembered. They remembered kindness in a galaxy ruled by cruelty. Some even chose to help humans, joining them in their careful campaign. On the capital world, Vaklar tried to rally his armies. Strike now. Show them fear. But the humans had already moved beyond the front lines. They disabled the Empire's communication towers, making the Empire's commands slower, weaker, and confusing. Soldiers who had never faced defeat began to doubt their orders. They began to see that humans were not weak. In one quiet moment, a human commander spoke to a group of young soldiers. Remember the child, she said softly. Not for anger. For courage. For what we protect. Every life matters. Her words spread among the fleet. Soldiers moved with care, thinking of those who could not protect themselves. Even in war they carried life, not death. As humans advanced, the Empire's power began to falter. Cities were not destroyed but they lost control. Military bases were intact but useless. Soldiers were not killed but trapped by clever tactics. Fear, once a tool of the Empire, no longer worked. Humans had turned patience and intelligence into weapons stronger than fire. Vaklar could not understand. He stared at the glowing map of human movements and saw patterns he could not predict. Humans acted like one being, protecting allies, disabling weapons, and giving hope to the oppressed. Every step the humans took reminded the aliens that fear alone could not rule the galaxy. By the time humans reached the heart of the Empire, the situation had changed completely. The Shakril no longer ruled by fear alone. Doubt had spread among their soldiers. Whispered questions of morality and leadership grew louder. The humans had not struck with hatred, but they had struck with strength, unity, and courage. And for the first time in generations, the Shakril Empire realized that humans were not what they had thought. They were patient, clever, and unstoppable when defending life. The galaxy, once silent under fear, was beginning to listen to a new voice, a voice of justice, courage, and unity. The child who had been lost so long ago had sparked more than anger. The humans had grown, quietly, steadily, into a force that no empire could ignore. Fear had ruled the stars for centuries, but it was no match for humans who moved like shadows, acted with wisdom, and never forgot the value of life. And as the first human ships entered the capital system, the aliens knew, deep in their hearts, that the storm had truly arrived. The Shakril Empire had ruled for centuries through fear. Worlds trembled at their name. Soldiers obeyed without question. Leaders thought themselves unstoppable. But now, everything was changing. Human ships moved steadily through the Empire's systems, not with rage but with calm precision. The aliens did not understand it. On the main command ship, Vaklar paced nervously. They are still humans, he said. One fleet. Wait. But, they are everywhere. His officers shook their heads. It does not make sense, one said. They are clever, coordinated. They strike without killing. How can this be? The humans continued to advance. Military bases lost their weapons, prisons opened, and communication systems were disabled. Every strike was careful, measured, and non-lethal when possible. The Empire had relied on fear to control its soldiers, but now the soldiers began to doubt their leaders. Commands were met with hesitation, whispers of disagreement grew louder. On one of the frontier worlds, a Shakril officer refused to follow an order to attack humans. "They do not fight for themselves alone," he said. "They fight to protect everyone. Can we say the same?" The order was repeated, but the soldiers hesitated. Fear no longer ruled their minds. Confusion had taken its place. Humans moved from system to system, freeing trapped species along the way. Some of these creatures had been hunted or enslaved for generations. They had never trusted anyone before, but humans showed them care. Water, food, shelter, safety. Simple things, but in a galaxy ruled by fear they were revolutionary. Some creatures even joined the humans, offering knowledge, strength, and insight the Empire could not anticipate. Vaklar realized, too late, that fear was no longer a weapon. His soldiers, trained to terrorize, were watching humans act with kindness and strategy. They could see that humans did not attack out of anger but out of purpose. They did not destroy cities, they protected life. Slowly, the soldiers began to question their leaders. In the capital, humans moved quietly but effectively. They disabled the Empire's warships without destroying them. Soldiers were contained rather than killed. The Council of Leaders, who had ruled through fear for generations, found themselves trapped not by force, but by clever tactics and unity. Their authority was crumbling. Outside the council chambers, alien soldiers murmured among themselves. "We followed their orders for centuries," one said. "And now we see they were wrong. We have been fools." Another nodded. "Perhaps we cannot rule by fear anymore." The humans reached the council hall. Vaklar and the other leaders expected violence, but it did not come. Instead, humans offered a choice: surrender and answer for their crimes, or continue to rule in chaos while the galaxy moved on. Confused, the leaders realized they had lost control. Fear was gone. Respect for strength, patience, and wisdom had replaced it. Across the Empire, rebellion spread. Soldiers refused to obey cruel orders. Planets stopped paying taxes. Citizens of conquered worlds no longer hid. The Empire, which had seemed unbreakable, fractured from within. Humans had not stormed cities with fire. They had simply shown the Empire what it meant to act with care, intelligence, and unity. In one quiet moment, Vaklar understood the truth. Humans were not monsters. They were not weak. They were clever, patient, and unstoppable when defending life. One small child's death had sparked a change that no empire could contain. The child's memory had become more powerful than fear, more powerful than armies. On the steps of the council hall, a human commander addressed the leaders. "Your empire has ruled through fear for too long," she said. "We are not here to destroy you. We are here to show you that strength comes from protecting, not harming. That courage comes from care, not cruelty. You will face justice, but you will also face the truth. Fear cannot rule forever." The leaders, shocked and silent, realized they had been wrong. Their soldiers, once loyal only to power, began to follow humans instead. They had seen that kindness and intelligence could achieve what terror never could. Planets that had been oppressed joined together. Freed creatures of every kind aided humans, helping rebuild systems rather than destroy them. In the months that followed, the Empire's power collapsed completely. Systems that had once been forced to obey now governed themselves with the guidance of humans. The Shakril leaders were removed from power, not by death, but by trial and accountability. The galaxy watched in awe as the once feared rulers learned that strength comes with responsibility. The memory of the child who had been lost so long ago was honored quietly on every human world. The child's courage had awakened humanity's patience, wisdom, and unity. The humans had grown stronger not through hatred but through care. Fear had ruled the stars for centuries, but it had no place in a galaxy led by justice and understanding. And as humans helped rebuild the Empire's shattered systems, the galaxy learned something new. Strength without cruelty, courage without hatred, and unity without fear could change the course of worlds. The Shakril Empire had broken, but from its ruins rose a new hope for all. After the Empire broke, the galaxy was quiet again, but it was not the same quiet as before. The fear that had ruled for centuries was gone. Humans moved through the systems, helping planets rebuild. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians worked together. Every action carried care, thought, and responsibility. The memory of the child who had been lost long ago guided them, a reminder of why they fought, not for power but for protection. On the main human ship, leaders gathered from many worlds. Humans were joined by former allies of the Shakril Empire, creatures who had been freed, and other species who had watched silently. The meeting was not loud and it was not rushed. Every voice was heard. Every decision was discussed. They were creating something new, a council for the stars where every species could be safe, every world respected, and every life valued. One of the human leaders, a woman with calm eyes and steady hands, spoke first. "We do not seek revenge," she said. "We do not want to rule with fear. We want to make sure that what happened to one child never happens again. Every life matters. Every world matters. We must learn from the past and act with care in the future." The council nodded. Ideas were shared, rules were written, and agreements were made. Humans insisted on fairness, justice, and responsibility. They suggested that leaders should be accountable, that no one should harm the weak, and that all species should be treated with respect. Slowly, the council began to take shape, guided by human principles. On the distant planets, people celebrated quietly. Farms grew again. Cities were rebuilt. Schools reopened. The freed creatures learned to live with humans not as slaves but as friends. For the first time, the galaxy felt a peace that was not forced but chosen. The stars seemed to shine differently, as if they had been waiting for this moment. The humans also honored the child who had been lost. Statues were built, gardens planted, and stories told. Not stories of revenge, but stories of courage, patience, and hope. The child had inspired more than anger. The child had inspired unity, wisdom, and care for others. Across the galaxy, people remembered that small acts of life and bravery could change everything. In the council hall, Vaklar and the other former leaders watched quietly. They had lost their power, but they were not destroyed. Humans had shown them another way, a way of responsibility and justice. For the first time, they understood that fear can control only for a time, but trust and unity can last forever. They began to learn from humans, to see how strength can be gentle and careful, not cruel. The first law of the new council was written clearly: no child of any world shall be harmed in war. No innocent shall be punished for the deeds of others. Life is sacred and all who live must be protected. The words were simple but their meaning was strong. Across the stars, every world understood that something had changed. Fear no longer ruled. Justice, care, and unity would guide the future. Humans continued to travel the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors. They taught what they had learned to other species. Strength was measured not by weapons but by wisdom. Courage was measured not by violence but by protection. And unity was measured by the ability to work together across differences. As years passed, the new council grew stronger. Conflicts that might have caused wars were resolved through discussion and fairness. Planets once oppressed by fear thrived. Children of every world learned to live safely and freely. The galaxy had changed, and it was because humans had remembered one small life, and used that memory to guide all others. And so, the stars themselves seemed brighter. A quiet lesson had spread across the galaxy. When courage, care, and unity replace fear, the future becomes safer for everyone. The humans had proven that even the smallest life can inspire the greatest change. Fear had ruled for centuries, but now life, wisdom, and protection ruled instead. The galaxy was at peace, but it was not a weak peace. It was strong because it was built on understanding, responsibility, and care. Humans had taught that power is not in fear but in protecting others. The empire that had ruled through terror was gone. In its place, a new law of the stars had begun, one that would be remembered forever. And somewhere, quietly, the memory of one human child smiled in the hearts of every being. That small life had started a chain of hope, courage, and unity that could never be broken. The galaxy was safer, stronger, and wiser because humans had acted with patience, intelligence, and care. Fear was gone and something better had taken its place.